There are 3 places on a man's body that you should never touch unless your goal is to make him think about you every single day after. Sounds dramatic maybe, but once you understand what happens in his brain and body when these spots are triggered the right way, you'll realize this is not a flirtation game. It's chemistry. Most people think seduction starts with what you see. The truth, it starts with what you touch and, more importantly, what you don't touch. Because the fastest way to make a man crave you is not by giving everything away, but by knowing how to hold back at exactly the right moment. And before we go any further, no, I'm not talking about obvious places. Everyone already knows those. I'm talking about the silent zones, the ones that make his body pause for a second, his breath change, and his mind go blank. These are not areas of lust alone. They're areas of trust. The first time I learned this, I thought it was a myth. How could a single graze or a gentle pause make a man feel more addicted than anything else? But then I watched how it worked. The look in his eyes wasn't just desire, it was surrender. Let's start with why this even happens. Human attraction isn't random. Touch is the oldest language we have. Older than words, older than eye contact. Every square inch of skin carries sensors connected directly to the emotional centers of the brain. When you touch certain places, you bypass logic and go straight to memory. That's why one moment of touch can last longer than a conversation or a kiss. But here's where it gets dangerous. Touching these zones without awareness can backfire. It can make him uncomfortable, guarded, or worse, detached. That's why I said never touch them unless you want him addicted. Now, before revealing the first place, I want you to remember something. Attraction is tension, not chaos, not drama tension. The pull between what he feels and what he wants next. You can't create that pull by being obvious. You create it by understanding how curiosity, restraint, and rhythm dance together. This video isn't about manipulation. It's about awareness, because when you know what your touch communicates, you stop guessing and start leading. The first place is deceptively innocent, the back of his neck. You might think it's just a neutral area, but it's one of the most ancient erogenous zones linked to both dominance and vulnerability. Biologically, when someone touches the back of our neck, it triggers a primal reaction, a mix between alertness and surrender. For a man, that's a paradox he can't ignore. A light touch there, when timed right, can turn his confidence into softness in seconds. But the secret isn't in the pressure, it's in the pause. When your fingertips linger just long enough for him to feel your warmth, then leave before he expects it, his nervous system goes into overdrive. He feels something building but doesn't get closure. That unfinished moment becomes a loop in his head that plays long after the touch is gone. This is the psychology of anticipation, the same principle used in storytelling music. And yes, chemistry. If you close the loop too fast, the tension dies. If you leave it open just right, it becomes obsession. The next time you're close to him, don't start with his face or his chest. Walk behind him. Let your hand slide slowly from his shoulder to the base of his neck. Stop there. Let your fingertips rest for a heartbeat, then move away as if you didn't mean to. You'll see it in his body language. The micro-freeze, the breath caught halfway. He won't say it, but his body will. That single moment will replay in his memory, quietly building a question he can't shake. Why did that feel so good? That's the power of touch done right. But that's only the first place. 2 more remain. One that amplifies his sense of protection, and one that switches his logical brain completely off. We'll get to those soon. For now, remember, this attraction is not about doing more. It's about doing less with precision. Touch less, mean more, speak less, feel more. And when you do, his body will start listening to you long before his mind catches up. The second place you should never touch a man unless you want him completely addicted is his lower back. Not the spine itself, not the obvious curves, but that small stretch of skin right above the waistband where his body naturally warms under clothes. That area is loaded with sensory nerves designed to detect temperature and subtle movement, which is why even the lightest graze there can make him flinch or inhale sharply. The lower back sits at the intersection between safety and surrender. It's the place where the body signals trust. When someone allows another person to get that close, it means the defense systems are down. That's why this spot carries power. It's not just about sensation. It's about permission. When you touch a man there, you're communicating wordlessly that you belong close. The psychology is simple but potent. That area is usually protected by clothing, posture, and habit. Breaking that boundary softly flips a subconscious switch. He feels something deeper than arousal. He feels seen, accepted, safe. Yet this is also where most people go wrong. Too firm and it feels controlling. Too quick and it feels meaningless. The secret is balance, slow, grounded, intentional. Think of your touch as a sentence. Every fingertip movement is a word. When you place your hand on his lower back, you're saying, I know where you're strongest, and I know how to calm you there. What happens next is biological. The skin there is linked to the vagus nerve, which controls relaxation and heart rate. A slow, warm touch releases oxytocin, the trust hormone, and dopamine, the anticipation chemical. That's why the effect lingers longer than you expect. He might not even realize why he feels drawn toward you. He just knows he does. Here's how to use it wisely. If you're standing next to him, don't grab or lean. Let your fingers barely rest there as you pass behind him or guide him somewhere. The goal is to make it feel unplanned, but not accidental. Subtle intention is the language of attraction. When done right, this touch says, I see your strength, but I also see the part of you that wants to exhale. That dual message is addictive because men rarely receive it. Most of them are conditioned to associate touch with performance, not comfort. When you reverse that, when your touch says you can stop performing now, it cuts through every layer of defense. He doesn't crave the touch itself. He craves the feeling of being allowed to rest in it. There's another layer here too. The lower back is also the hinge of movement, the center of gravity. When you touch that spot, you subtly influence his posture. You can draw him closer without pulling, guide him forward without words. That physical dynamic translates emotionally into leadership through softness. You're leading without force. And that paradox is what keeps his attention locked. Attraction built on command can fade. Attraction built on calm control lasts. You can test this. The next time you walk past him, let your fingertips glide across that small area, then step away before he turns. Don't look back immediately. Give him time to register the sensation, to wonder if it was deliberate. That question will keep echoing. His brain will start replaying it, not because of lust, but because the touch created a gap, an unanswered message. This is called the unfinished cue effect. The mind hates open loops. It wants closure. When you leave that touch unresolved, he unconsciously seeks it again to complete the feeling. This is the same principle that keeps people addicted to cliffers, songs that fade out mid-note, or stories that never quite finish. In physical chemistry, the same rule applies. What's left undone becomes unforgettable. But here's the caution. This isn't a trick to manipulate. It's a reminder to respect the line between interest and invasion. The key is reading his response. Does he lean into the touch? Does his breathing deepen? If so, his body is saying yes. If he stiffens or pulls away, step back. Awareness is what separates connection from confusion. When you use this spot correctly, it's not about dominance or seduction. It's about synchronization. His nervous system starts to mirror yours, matching your rhythm, your calm, your pace. That's how intimacy becomes magnetic instead of mechanical. And here's a secret few people realize. When a man feels guided through safety instead of forced through excitement, his mind ties that comfort to the person who gave it. That's why he keeps coming back sometimes without even knowing why. The lower back is your silent way of telling him you're allowed to let go. But there's still one place left, the most powerful one of all. The one that overrides logic, memory, and resistance in an instant. It's not where most people think, and it's not something you can fake. It's where every addictive touch begins and ends, and it's coming next. The third place you should never touch a man, unless you want him addicted, is not a physical spot at all. It's the space between his mind and his body. the invisible connection that forms when you touch him while staying completely present. Most people think physical attraction is about technique, but the truth is, a man's deepest addiction comes from emotional synchronization. When you touch him but your mind is elsewhere, your energy feels scattered, detached, and his body senses it instantly. When you touch him, while fully focused, breathing with him, noticing the small changes in his face, the way his muscles respond, his nervous system mirrors yours. That's what makes the moment unforgettable. It's not what you did, it's how aware you were when you did it. Neuroscience calls this limbic resonance, a state where two people's emotional systems sync up like instruments tuned to the same frequency. For him, it feels like connection. For you, it feels like control. The paradox is he can't describe why it feels so powerful. He only knows that when you touch him, it feels different from anyone else. This is where the addiction starts. Not in his skin, but in his memory. His brain begins linking you with a specific emotional tone. Calm intensity safety mixed with desire. Every time he feels that combination again, he'll think of you. That's why the most irresistible touches are the ones paired with emotional presence. A distracted touch is forgettable. A conscious touch rewires memory. He'll show you activate it. When you're close to him, take one quiet breath before you move. Let your thoughts slow until you can feel your own heartbeat. Then touch him. It can be anywhere. The neck, the back, the arm. But when your body is aligned with your focus, it changes the vibration of the moment. He'll sense it even if he doesn't understand it. The air thickens, his breathing adjusts to yours, and time seems to slow. This is not magic. It's biology. The human brain is wired to pick up micro-signals of attention and intention. When you give him both, he experiences it as magnetism. It's the same energy that artists feel when they lose themselves in their craft, or athletes when they enter flow state. Except here, the art is touch, and the canvas is his awareness. You're no longer just someone touching him. You become the environment he's feeling inside. That's why he can't stop thinking about it later. His body remembers before his mind catches up. But here's where you have to be careful. The power of presence can create dependency if misused. You don't use it to manipulate. You use it to deepen authenticity. You're not giving him addiction for the sake of control. You're showing him what real attention feels like. In a world flooded with distraction, that kind of attention becomes rare and therefore unforgettable. When he feels it, he doesn't crave the physical sensation. He craves the peace that comes with it. That's what makes this third place so dangerous. It's not a body part. It's a state of mind. When you master it, you can guide any moment without speaking. You can silence noise without a word. Think about how most people interact. Rushed, mechanical, half-present. Now imagine the opposite. Slow, deliberate, tuned in. The energy shifts completely. You're not trying to please him. You're leading him into calmness that feels like desire. The difference between need and connection is focus. Touching someone without awareness gives pleasure. Touching someone with awareness gives imprint. He'll start associating you with a feeling he can't find elsewhere. That's the real secret behind addiction. It's not the body that becomes hooked. It's the brain's search for repetition of a rare experience. So how do you apply it? The next time you reach for him, even something as simple as adjusting his shirt or brushing lint from his collar, slow it down. Look where you touch. Feel the texture of the fabric, the warmth of his skin beneath it. Don't rush. When your movements carry intention, they transmit certainty. And certainty feels like confidence. Confidence, when mixed with gentleness, feels like gravity. That's what draws him in. Presence turns you from a participant into the center of the moment. Every man wants to feel desired, but few ever feel deeply seen. When your awareness becomes the touch, you give him both. And once a man experiences that kind of connection, he doesn't want to lose it. It's not lust anymore. It's imprint. And that imprint is what keeps him coming back, searching for the calm, the rhythm and the unspoken understanding that only happens when someone touches not just his skin, but his entire sense of being. That's the final and most powerful place, because once you reach it, Every touch that follows feels inevitable, now that you understand the 3 places you should never touch a man unless you want him addicted. The back of his neck, the lower back, and the space between his mind and body. It's time to see how they connect. When these 3 align, something subtle but powerful happens. You stop being someone who touches his body and become someone who directs his chemistry. Each point activates a different layer of him instinct, trust, and emotional synchronization. Together, they form what psychologists call a bonding loop, a feedback cycle, where pleasure and attachment reinforce each other. It's the same mechanism that makes a song replay in your head or a scent remind you of someone you can't forget. But unlike songs or scents, this loop is built through living touch, which makes it far more intense and far harder to erase. Here's how it plays out in real time. When your fingertips brush the back of his neck, his primitive brain lights up with alertness and curiosity. He feels a spike of awareness, the kind that wakes every nerve in the spine. Then when your hand moves lower to his back, the signal travels inward toward comfort. His muscles soften his breathing, evens out his body says, "I trust this." Finally, when your presence wraps around the touch, your breath steady your focus. Absolute. His nervous system can't tell where his body ends and yours begins. That moment is theral addiction, the feeling of unity. It's what every human secretly craves beneath all the noise of attraction. What makes this so rare is how little it depends on words. You could say nothing and still make him feel more seen than hours of conversation ever could. The reason is that touch, when conscious, becomes language. Every motion, pause, or micro-adjustment says something that bypasses logic. Most people communicate with words to be understood. You're communicating with touch to be felt. The deeper irony is that the less effort you use, the stronger it becomes. When you stop trying to impress or prove and simply tune in, your energy steadies. That steadiness translates to control, and control under calmness feels irresistible. Men, even confident ones, rarely experience a moment where they can fully relax without losing face. When you create that space, his mind attaches it to you. You become the calm in his system, the eye of his internal storm. That's what keeps him thinking about you long after. It's not what you did. It's the emotional state you put him in. This is where presence turns into influence. The longer he feels grounded with you, the more he subconsciously seeks that grounding. Again, the addiction isn't just to pleasure, it's to peace. That's the paradox no one talks about. The most powerful seduction isn't chaos, it's calm. The secret isn't intensity, it's intentionality. When you know how to slow down, guide, and breathe, you become the rhythm he didn't know he needed. The best part, you don't need to exaggerate or play games. You only need to notice the tiny shifts in his breathing, the flicker of his eyes, the way his shoulders drop when he exhales. These are all feedback loops. The more you observe them, the more in sync you become until he starts responding to your energy without realizing why. That's the real form of connection mastery. Not words, not rules, but awareness. When you combine awareness with restraint, you create suspense. And suspense is where all addiction begins, because the human brain is designed to chase what it can't fully predict. When you give him a taste of connection, then step back, his mind starts to fill the gap. He imagines, replays, wonders. That's why half of attraction happens in absence, not in contact. Every moment of pause becomes a silent invitation. You are no longer chasing attention, you're pulling it. And the more still you are, the more he moves toward you. That's the gravity of emotional chemistry. But here's what no one expects. This level of awareness can change more than your love life. When you learn to control energy and attention, you also learn to lead. You become sharper in conversation, more grounded in presence, and more magnetic in silence. Because the same psychology that keeps him drawn to you is the same psychology that makes anyone want to follow someone confident yet calm. That's why the true art of touch is really the art of energy direction. When you can move it, pause it, and focus it, you can change not only how others feel about you, but how you feel about yourself. That's the hidden reward behind all of this. You're not just mastering connection with him. You're mastering connection with yourself. And when you reach that point, the line between attraction and authenticity disappears. You stop performing. You start radiating. But there's still one final question. What happens when he begins to feel the same loop back toward you? When the addiction reverses, when the touch once controlled starts to echo back through his actions, his words, his presence, how do you hold that power without losing yourself? That's the next step, and it's one most people never prepare for. When he starts feeling the same loop back toward you, everything shifts. The balance you once guided becomes a mirror, and that's where most people lose control. They mistake his addiction for validation, his attention for proof. But the truth is, the moment that starts mirroring your energy, you've reached the edge between influence and dependence. This is where you need clarity, not control. Because if you don't understand what's happening, the same chemistry that drew him in can start pulling you under too. Here's what really happens. When he begins to crave your presence, his brain fires the same neurotransmitters it does in reward addiction. Dopamine creates the high of anticipation. Oxytocin builds attachment, and serotonin starts linking you with safety. It's biology, not destiny. He isn't in love yet. He's in the chemical phase where his system associates you with peace and pleasure. The more consistent your energy remains, the deeper the imprint. That's why power now lies in maintaining balance. Don't feed the loop too much. Don't withdraw completely. Instead, shift from stimulation to grounding. If he's used to you leading the rhythm, slow the tempo. When he leans closer, respond with stillness. When he seeks reassurance, respond with calm observation. You're teaching his body a new rhythm, one where attraction matures into awareness. This keeps both of you from falling into emotional dependency. Remember, control through connection is delicate. It's strongest when it's invisible. The moment you start chasing reaction, you've lost direction. That's why true mastery lies not in keeping his attention, but in knowing when to release it. Because paradoxically, the more space you allow, the more magnetism builds. The brain values what it can't fully possess. When you become the person who knows how to create space with confidence, you become irreplaceable. This is the difference between being wanted and being remembered. Being wanted is immediate. Being remembered is timeless. So how do you stay in control of that power? You anchor yourself. You keep your focus internal, not external. Every time you touch, speak, or look, ask yourself, am I giving energy or seeking response? If you're seeking, slow down. If you're giving, stay grounded. That awareness resets the loop before it consumes you. Because what made him addicted wasn't the touch alone. It was your centeredness inside the moment. Lose that, and you lose the very essence of the connection. Keep it, and you become untouchable. There's another layer to this. When he feels your energy pull back, he instinctively wants to close the gap. That's his subconscious craving for equilibrium. You don't have to push or perform. Simply hold your calm and let him come to you. The silence between you becomes charged, not empty. That tension is the purest form of attraction, because it's no longer based on effort. It's based on awareness. You've shifted from physical chemistry to energetic dominance. He'll start noticing small things. The way your tone slows his speech, the way your presence alters his mood, the way a single glance changes his breathing. These are the markers of someone fully attuned to another's system. But you must handle it with responsibility. Energy this potent can heal or manipulate. Choose to refine it, not exploit it. Let your awareness serve understanding, not ego. Because at the highest level of mastery, seduction becomes serenity. The calm confidence of knowing that connection is not something you chase, it's something you create. And that's where the cycle completes. The touch that began as curiosity becomes communication. The awareness that began as attention becomes influence. The addiction that began as physical now becomes emotional memory. You're no longer teaching how to touch. You're teaching how to be. The three places, the neck, the back, and the mind, were never just about physical contact. They were entry points into understanding the human system, sensitivity, trust, and resonance. When all three align, touch becomes language, and presence becomes art. That's when he stops comparing, stops searching, and simply feels anchored in you. But remember, every art form has its paradox. The moment you master it, you must let it go. If you hold it too tightly, it loses freedom. If you release it too quickly, it loses meaning. So the real test isn't whether he becomes addicted, it's whether you can stay free while he does. Can you hold power without needing proof? Can you create desire without losing balance? That's where mastery truly begins, because the ultimate touch isn't on his skin, it's on his perception. Once you reach that level, words become unnecessary. He feels your silence, remembers your presence, and understands what no language can describe. And maybe that's the point, not to make him addicted, but to remind him what real connection feels like. To remind you that control isn't about holding, it's about knowing when to let go. And as you do, a quiet thought lingers in the air, unfinished, deliberate, a whisper that keeps the loop alive. What if the next touch changes?